welcome to the Booknerds Hangout. It's great to talk to you over this medium. And we thought that, it has been a while since we met and we needed to discuss some books really badly. And what better than the use of technology to, uh, do all of it again? We have been locked down for a while now. And I hope we all are reading books, watching Netflix, and all of that. But this experience of talking to everyone about books, sharing our favorites, and just getting recommendations in general is priceless. So that's why we have decided to conduct this online book club meetup. And of course, we have three books on the menu. uh, and those are, the first one is Vanara by Anand Neelakantan. I have been reading it throughout this week, and I'll be sharing my views about the book. And the second one is Gita by Devdutt Pattanaik, Vidushi Nautiyal, who goes by Vinny Nola on this Google Meet Hangout Meet, is going to discuss the Gita by Devdutt Pattanaik, and we have with us Priyakshi Goswami, who will be discussing The Liberation of Sita by Volga. It's a translation. Yeah, that one. And she'll be telling us about what she felt about the book and, how did she like it. So, uh, first of all, I would love to thank you all for coming and sparing time and your internet data for this one. And hope you guys are doing well. Staying inside, I'll go directly to Vinny Nola, aka Vidushi Nautiyal. She'll be talking about Gita by Devdutt Pattanaik and also telling us which books, other books she loves in the genre, and so much more.
Okay, hello everybody. I hope some of you know me and I'm not a very unknown face. It's been a long time since we've had a discussion like this. Today I'm going to discuss this book, which is My Gita by Devdutt Pattanaik. And this is a book that has been in my possession for over a year, and I have just recently finished it, that too on a quota, because the author asked me to read it very slowly and with a lot of experience in between and time in between, so that I could imbibe all that he was trying to teach, and I took that to heart. So talking about the book, first I would like to read aloud a quote of the author that is one of his favorites, and he likes to include it in all of his books. And here it goes. It'll be the Hindi version because that is a lot more poetic. अनंत पुराणों में छिपा है सनातन सत्य, इसे पूर्णता किसने देखा है? वरुण के हैं नैन हजार, इंद्र के 100, आपके मेरे केवल 2. So, Devdutt Pattanaik is an Indian mythologist, speaker, illustrator, and author. And he has written a number of books, including mythological books, as well as management and children's books and fiction. So he has a variety under his control, and there is a lot. He's a very knowledgeable person, as I feel like. Coming to the book, the Gita, My Gita, is a very thematic and subjective version of the Gita, the original. The author makes it clear that it is his comprehension of what he understood, and thus it is his perception of what is being written. Which is also that I understood that my reason for loving My Gita is that it is written in a very simplistic way that is easy to understand for the ordinary person. It is easy to apply for a person who has a job and is not ready to just give up everything and leave everything behind. It is easy to apply in real life, and which is also one of the reasons that people dislike this book, since it is not very academically written. It is not very professional in the sense of the writing and the way it is being told, but it is rather easy to understand for someone like me who hasn't ever read anything like it before. The only other book that I can remember reading is the author's same book, that is Jaya, which is a retelling of the Mahabharata. And that book is also very, very beautifully written. The way the stories are presented is very beautiful. I especially in this book, I especially love chapter one, which tells us about that you and I do not have to judge. I'm sorry for all the people who don't like markings on the book. I just find it very easy, and I like marking stuff. I am sorry. I like marking things. It makes me feel special. Leave me alone. But yes, so the first chapter focuses mainly on Dhritarashtra and Arjun, on Dhritarashtra's blindness, which the author, and I quote, says that his blindness is not just uh, absence of sight, but rather the absence of empathy. That means that Dhritarashtra actively he lets his jealousy and his anger cloud his vision, which in turn doesn't let him imbibe darshan, which Arjun eventually does at the time when he's approaching the battle scene, when he asks Krishna on the teaching on why they're doing what they are doing, why are they battling their own family, and how bad that is. Arjun is actively reaching out and trying to mend things. He is imbibing his empathy, whereas Dhritarashtra is actively not. He's trying to not see past anything but his own anger and what he feels has been done wrong to him. He's playing a victim, and he's becoming a victim in a grand scheme which is preventing him from uh, from receiving moksha, basically. There is another quote of the book that I really like, and that is, showing does not guarantee seeing, telling does not guarantee hearing. Gyan is not Vigyan. Gyan here is what is told, and Vigyan is what is heard. Now, in between these two things, there is another short story that he tells about Dhritarashtra and Sanjay, where Sanjay is relaying everything to Dhritarashtra of what is happening on the battlefield. Now, Sanjay is someone that does not have the knowledge or the power, but Dhritarashtra does. But he's still not listening to what Sanjay is saying, and he's not imbibing it, which prevents him from, well, being a good person, to be honest. Uh, and yeah, and that is what Arjun is not doing. Arjun is actively trying to imbibe that, and which also takes us to another uh, era, to another part of the story where Krishna is trying to mock him into, he's testing him into whether he should provide him with his teachings or not. Krishna is still testing him whether he has the right amount of empathy and whether he has reached that level that he can take all his teachings. So he tells him that he mocks him that he's not man enough. He's not remembering all the suffering that his family has gone through, that his brothers and his wife has gone through, and he's just empathizing with the enemy. But Arjun doesn't let that sway him. He regains his empathy, and which gives him his way to darshan. And darshan, as told in the book, is in darshan one sees a fluid world of cause and consequence, where there are no divisions, boundaries, hierarchies, or rules, which is ultimately what we need for moksha. Darshan is the end of judgment, and to so that we can see the world in a way that it is truly meant to, and imbibe everything. which is the essence of life. What I also appreciate about this book is the level of research that is done in the book, like such as I did not know that there was any sort of relation to any story before the Gita to the Gita. Like before the Gita came the butcher's song, which is mentioned here. Uh, and the butcher's song was that while the Pandavas were still in exile, in the forest they encountered a sage, Markandya, who was very impatient and very angry in nature. And what he would do is, if any bird would be flying over him and would drop their excrements on him, he would burn them with his fiery gaze. So while once he was asking for alms and um, from a woman, from a household woman who was tending to her household, he got very impatient and very rude with her. So she told him to go and hear the butcher's song. And when he did, he was so entranced by it, and it changed him so much that he came home and went back to his house and took care of his parents. So that was something that I did not know, and the author provided. Another great thing about the book is about the different lores and the folklores alongside the main story that the author provides, such as Arjun's past. First, the author tells us about all that's been done wrong with Arjun and all that has happened wrong with him in this lifetime. But then he also tells us three stories about it, about his past lives uh, that affect his present life, the life in which the Gita is being told. So, and one of the three is one of my favorites. It was the story of Nar and Narayan, where there was this asur who has the power of 1,000 shields. And what Nar and Narayan, the twins, would do is that while one would fight with the asur, the other would meditate to achieve the necessary powers to destroy one of his shields. And they couldn't destroy multiple shields at one time. They could only destroy one shield at a time. So for a long, long time, they fought him. And when there was just one shield of his left, he destroyed the whole world, which uh, leads to this lifetime, the Gita's lifetime, Mahabharat's lifetime. And in that is told that Karn was that Asur and Nar was Arjun, while Narayan was Krishna. So, which is why in this lifetime he is paying for all the sins that happened earlier, which makes so much sense in my mind because in Hinduism, as the author tells, there is the concept of rebirth. And in rebirth, there is not just this lifetime and the sins we do in this lifetime that we have to repent for, that we have to redeem for. There are uncountable chances for us to redeem and to make better. And this lifetime of Mahabharat was Arjun's chance to redeem and achieve moksha. So that
Hi
is another.
Vidushi. Yeah. Thanks for that. Thank you so much. It was quite some insight into My Gita. Even I have it.
I can
So
see that.
yeah. So what we'll do is I would like to ask Priyakshi Rajguru Goswami, who is uh, the Booknerds editorial team member, alongside Vidushi Nautiyal, to tell us more about which book she loves, and of course about the Liberation of Sita, which was highly successful when it launched, and it's a translation, so a great one at that. So Priyakshi, if you could unmute yourself and take the proceedings further.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to see. I have my guitar too.
Oh, okay, great.
I am going to talk about the Liberation of Sita, a very, very interesting book by Volga. This is her pen name. She writes originally in Telugu. This is a translation which was published in 2016. But the stories in Telugu were published separately and written individually, independently of each other. And they were put together because there's a common theme running between all the stories. And that is that Sita meets different characters of the Mahabharata in this book. And through these characters, she achieves her own realization, self realization, and ultimately liberation. So, who are these characters that she meets? They are marginalized women characters of the Mahabharata. Women who have been oppressed by men, subjugated by men, humiliated by them. So, the first woman that she meets is Surpanakha. Surpanakha, who was disfigured, mutilated by Ram through no fault of her own, except that she was in love with Ram. And she is made a scapegoat in this journey, in this fight between good and evil, Ram and Ravan. Okay? So when Sita meets Surpanakha, there is no ill feeling in her mind towards Surpanakha. She meets her as an old friend. And Surpanakha has something very interesting to tell her. She says that she has become a different person now. She has overcome her grief, her anger at being mutilated like this. And she has created a beautiful garden. And she has also found a soul mate who likes her for who she is and not for her beauty. And this is the lesson that Surpanakha teaches Sita, that you have to find your inner beauty. You have to create. You have to become creative with your anger instead of waging war after war after war like all men do. We women, it's for us to turn our grief into something creative, something beautiful. So this is one lesson that Sita learns from Surpanakha. The next lesson that she learns is from another character who was oppressed, that is Ahalya. Ahalya was married to sage Gautam, and one day Indra came in the disguise of Gautam because he lusted after her and slept with her. And she didn't know, so she unknowingly slept with him. But Gautam was enraged by this and thought that this was adultery, and she was turned into stone by her anger, by his anger. So this is from Ahalya's point of view again, like what she went through, and she says that no, I didn't become a stone. That's what people think.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't even want to explain whether I knew that Indra was not Gautam.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's pointless. It's pointless. Truth, what is truth, what is untruth, there's no point in knowing this. Okay, so it's up to you to go inwards into yourself and question what is the truth and what is untruth. And she gives Sita a warning, which Sita doesn't at that point like, because Sita herself is steeped in patriarchal values at that moment, and she cannot question those values immediately. So when she tells Sita that, look, you have to liberate yourself, you do not give in to authority, do not accept a trial. Okay, Sita doesn't understand it. She says, what do you mean by trial? I am very much in love with Ram. Ram will never do this to me. He is deeply in love with me. I'll never be subjected to a trial. So why are you saying all this to me? So she's a little disturbed by Ahalya's advice, and she goes away. But it stays in her mind. And later on, we see that she remembers Ahalya's words when Ram, banishes her to the forest. Okay. And the third woman she meets is Renuka Devi, who was another woman who was punished for just a little what was seen as a betrayal by her husband. And sage Parashuram beheads her because his father instructs her to do that. His father instructs him to behead Renuka Devi because it seems she got distracted by looking at a Gandharva man for a minute. and that distraction almost cost her her life. So Renuka Devi says, what's this life that we women devote our life to our husbands, our sons, and ultimately they are the ones who cast aside. They do not care about us at all. At the slightest behest, they will throw us out of their lives. So we women have to learn to be self-reliant. We have to learn to be independent of them. So this is one lesson that Renuka Devi teaches Sita, that you do not belong to anyone. You are your own person. You take upon yourself your own authority. Okay, do not give the authority to anybody else.
Right.
The fourth person she meets is Urmila, Lakshman's wife. Now Lakshman goes away to the forest with Ram, leaving Urmila behind. Not even once does he ask her if she wanted to accompany him to the forest. So she's left alone, isolated, and she shuts herself up in her palace and doesn't open the door in all these 14 years. Nobody knows what she was doing. Then when Sita comes back, she badly wants to meet Urmila. So Urmila opens the door to her and she says, no, I was not grieving, or I was not angry. I was not doing any of those things that people think. In fact, I was on this journey of self-realization.
Yeah.
Okay, and I realized that it's up to me to spend my life the way I see fruitful. And I spent it meditating. I spent it in self-realization. So again, she tells Sita that you must look within yourself and seek yourself out. Okay, you take the authority upon yourself. Do not let others rule over you. So this is when Sita begins her journey of self-realization, and she ultimately liberates herself. And the last story is about Ram. It's not about any woman. It's about Ram and how Ram himself is a subject of many discourses, actually, if you look at it like that. He himself is very helpless in his situation as the Purushottam Ram, and his whole thing of upholding the Arya Dharma. So he is in shackles. So it's only Sita who can liberate him from those shackles. And she does that by going away and leaving her sons with Ram. And ultimately, Ram can make them his heirs. So this is the story. Now, what I found very interesting in the story is that it presents a few dichotomies, like between, the forest and the city, for instance. The forest is where all these women reside, and they're very close to nature. And this is what ecofeminism talks about. Vandana Shiva, for instance, talks about this ecofeminism, where women are close to nature. Women are the upholders of, they're the ones who will protect nature ultimately. And the city is equated to corruption, warfare, all the evil things. So, women reside in the forest and men in the city. It's the men who will power, they wage wars, whereas women, what they do is they share and care. So this book again raises the same question that the feminist movement raises, about the subjugation of women in the hands of patriarchy, and how women can break out of that patriarchal subjugation and become their own persons. It also promotes the notion of sisterhood among women. If you come together as women, then you can become stronger. You can relate to each other. You can tell each other about your stories of oppression. And through unity with each other, you can derive strength. So this is another notion that the feminist movement promotes, and this book talks about that. So, and it's also relevant in today's society. It's very, very applicable in today's society, where women go through so much of oppression. Even today, they are ostracized for various reasons. They are thrown out of their family homes. They are thrown out by their husbands, domestic violence, this, that, and the other, for no fault of their own. So this book talks about how women can liberate themselves from these oppressive circumstances. So that is all I had to say. And I have this book which I thought I'll go into it after finishing off with some other books. This is another book by Devdutt Pattanaik, Sita. And then I told you I have this book. I had bought this also, so I don't know. Okay, I don't know if this will be different from this book, but it looks interesting. Then I had picked up this book somewhere. It looked like a fun version of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's see. I haven't gone into that. But these two books, of course, everybody must have read, the Meluha, Secret of the Meluhas and the Nagas, and the Vayuputras.
Yeah.
So, so that's all I had to say.
Great.
Hope you read this book and let's discuss it further.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Priyakshi. Thank you so much. If you could mute yourself and then we'll take this further. You are totally right that this, the Liberation of Sita is really, contemporary in its rendering because, all those concepts even hold now. And let's go to Bala first because he has just come to Dehradun and we want to welcome him back from Hassan near Bangalore, is it? I don't know where is that, but I think it's called Hassan. So let's go to him, talk to him about his influences in mythology, which books does he read. So yeah, Bala, you can unmute yourself and take it from here.
Yeah, fine. I had recently read this book, Shakuni and the Dice of Doom by Mallar Chatterjee. It is presenting this Mahabharata from the point of view of Shakuni, wherein it contains that actually Shakuni was insulted by Kunti in one of the Swayamvaras, and as a result he wanted to take vengeance against her, and that story builds up with it's not the usual version of what we learn about Shakuni. Is much more, his evilness is brought out very well in this book. And the last year I had read this Vanara, of course, that you are going to talk about, which I found it very interesting. This particular book is full of, actually it's more, it is having more conspiracies than the original Mahabharata, whatever you have read. And it talks about lot of, this is really a very interesting book. I just completed it and I could not write down my thoughts on this also.
Okay. Thanks, Bala. We'll come back to you. Thanks for the initial thoughts and we'll come back to you. I really wanted to go to comic nerd Arpit. He's here. He might give us, new insight into how have the comic books, treated the mythological heroes and, all the heroes we have loved since our childhood. And let's go to comic nerd Arpit and let's see what he has got to say. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Arpit, and now you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the influence of Ramayana and Mahabharata on the comic books has been a lot, actually, for all the Indian youth. I was just reading about it. Some of the comic book industries are actually writing Mahabharata all over again, just to break up the record of, the highest number of panels ever written by any comic book industries. And if you go back in time, like about to Raj Comics and, that was the golden age for Indian comics, we see at that time that the essence of the Ramayana and Mahabharata is there. There's one big series called Nagayan and Mahanagayan. There are characters called Maharavan. So these characters really is influenced by the history and the culture of India itself. I was reading about this, I was reading this extract of Ramayana and Mahabharata of, people that people wrote. And this conclusion really came into picture when I was reading it. It said that the only person who was, responsible for, making a choice in Ramayana was actually Sita. And he gave actually a very good description why. There was 5 choices. choices that were made by Sita in the entire duration of Ramayana. Starting with the persecution means going to the exile. Starting from then, the exile was only given to Ram by Kaikeyi, but she said that what will I do? I will do without you in this palace. So she said, I will come with you. That was her first choice. Her second choice being that to cross the Lakshman Rekha. Her third choice when after being liberated from Ravan, her third choice was to go back to the environment of the Ayodhya, even though they know that she was taken away from Ram, and yet going back there would bring disgrace also. But she was like, no, I will go with my husband wherever he goes. Okay. The fourth choice being leaving Ayodhya again, when after there was a discussion between the people that she was taken away by Ravan. Is she pure enough or not? If you have written, if you have heard these Puran stories, short stories, there was this story about a Dhoban who actually said that is she pure or not. So Ram said that you need to give Agni Pariksha again in front of people. So her fourth choice was leaving Ayodhya again in search of herself. And the fifth and the final choice that she made was to leave the world itself. So these stories really pan out great in comic books. They show the perspective of each and every person. We start with Ram. These 4 ages are described by, because maximum we know it as Satyug, Dwapar, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. But the English people, the English speaking audience, what they have made it to 4 ages as Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age that we use in history books. So they made it like that. The influence of Mahabharata doesn't end also. There are multiple stories that can be told by this, and the most important essence comes by the single stories. Struggle of Karn to be the best, even though he was born in a high sort of caste, but he was abandoned by his mother, and his whole environment, his whole way to go back to where he should belong, and finding out himself who he was, being the commitment that he gave. So that pan out really great in a comic book. And of course, the weapons, they are a league of their own.
Thanks, Arpit. That was great, and we'll come back to you for your comments on the comic book by Graphic India. Is it? So we can come back to you for that. Now I would like to go to Varun.
I'll talk about this. This is Valmiki's Ramayana. This is like the original text. This is like an abridged translation of Valmiki's Ramayana by Arshia Sattar. She's like a prominent Sanskritologist, and like she worked with Wendy Doniger and like real scholars. This is great. Everybody should read it, because because there are like a million versions of Ramayana, and I used to get in all sorts of arguments with people because depending on who you ask, Ram has completely different, not completely, but depending on every version, Ram's motivation will change, or like certain things that he did will change. So I was getting really confused with that. Ki, bhai, main jhagda kaise karunga if I don't know the source? So I picked up Ramayana, and it's different from what we are told Dadi Nani ki kahaniyon mein, because there is because first off, there is no Lakshman Rekha scene in this. Lakshman Rekha does not exist. Valmiki Ramayana mein. So anyways, and there is a lot of. I just wanted to give a little sort of like a basic background to this. So this Valmiki's Ramayana was written in 700 BC, right? And this is basically the earliest written form of the story. And the theories are that before that, the story might have been in circulation through oral retellings for 500 years or 1,000 years. We don't know when the myth actually started, but the first written version of it, which is claimed to be written by Valmiki, is this. This was in 700 BC. The version that we are most familiar as a culture, I think, is Ramcharitmanas, which was in 1500 AD or something. So basically there's a gap of 2200 years, right? And there is a big, and there is like there are a lot of things that are different with this, because first of all, Ram has no conception that he's an avatar. He does not have any conception that he's divine or anything. He's just a king. We know as an audience that he's an avatar.
Okay.
That like he has been. There is a funny thing. Like you had that book about Vanars, right? So there is a section in this, and this book is very. There is a lot of sexuality. There is a lot of. This book does not have any shame with the human body. That there is a lot of sexuality that gets scrubbed when grandmothers tell these stories to like children, or when parents, when we talk about it in pop culture terms, because we almost never imagine these deities having sexual lives or sexual desires or anything. Anyway, back to the topic. I think so. Yeah, I've not finished with this. I'm on the first 100 pages. Oh, and there are certain things that I wanted to say. There are nine नौ कांड है रामायण में, राइट? बाल कांड, अयोध्या कांड, एंड होता है युद्ध कांड पे और फिर उत्तर कांड में. And so the scholars, they did some research on it, and basically बाल कांड और उत्तर कांड. बाल कांड is all the section जहाँ पे दशरथ को बच्चा चाहिए होता है, फिर वो ऋषि के पास जाता है, ऋषि उसको खीर देता है, ये सब होता है. That and the last one जहाँ पे सीता, जहाँ पे वॉर के बाद राम राज्य होता है और फिर सीता धरती में समा जाती हैं. These were not written by Valmiki. These were not in the original text. तो होता ये है कि you have these core 7 chapters which were supposed to be the original story, and they have a consistent like style of writing. And then you have these 2 chapters, beginning and the end, where the style just completely changes. So this is not like original text, but through years of retelling, this has all become part of the thing. And I'm reading it, and it's sort of infuriating because I kept having arguments with my friend who's like a big scholar. He's like a big mythology nerd, and he's like a very leftist person, but like he's very liberal and progressive, but he's very defensive of Ram because he thinks that Ram is like, because I think a lot of our problems with modern society's problems with Ram are that he's sort of hypocritical and like, you know, but he's like, no, he's not like that. So I was like, I'm going to shut him up by reading this book and let's see what Valmiki has to say about it, right? So an interesting thing popped up. So Bal Kand mein, which was not in the original Ramayana, but Bal Kand mein is the jahan pe Ram Tadka ka vadh karta hai, right? Ram is like a 15-year-old kid along with Lakshman, who are on a mission with Vishwamitra because Vishwamitra ka yajna is being disrupted by Rakshasa. तो वो लोग जाते हैं वहां पे, and ताड़का आ जाती है. Tadka lives in the forest, and she's like a yakshi who has been turned into a rakshasi. She's ugly and Ram's first idea, the first thing Ram thinks of to do with Tadka is कि देखो मैं इसकी नाक और इसके कान काट दूंगा. And then he like he's not able to do that, so he chops her arms off because she's throwing rocks at them. And then he shoots her through the heart. I was like, okay. And then the very next fight is with Marich and Subahu, who are also Rakshasas, right? So dono ke same powers hai. And Marich and Subahu, he just straight away shoots them through the heart. There is no mutilation. There is no mutilation of ears and nose and everything. But because Tadka even though Tadka and Marich and Subahu, they have the same objective, which is to like kill them. But like they have to torture Tadka first and sort of disfigure her. And it's basically all the Hindu cosmology is, I think it's basically you have all these different races which were living in India, right? So you've got, there's a Kinnar. Kinnars were basically horse riding archers who were renowned for their archery, and people now say that they might have been Mongol-like tribes from the steppes, Eurasian steppes, right? They're also they're related to centaurs basically. They're like creatures who are welded to horses. Because they are such great horse riders that you can't tell them apart. So there are all these races, and I'm guessing Rakshas wali jo jati hoti hai, they're basically like Adivasis or people who live in the forests. I'll wrap up by saying that this book is very. I think every culture's mythology basically reflects the things that they want to enjoy, right? So if you want to get a sense of what our culture was like 2000, 2500 years ago, this is a great book because it does tell you like what our attitudes toward race and gender and caste were. And I'm disappointed to say that they were not very different from where we are right now. But yeah, read this, Valmiki's Ramayana.
Thanks, Varun. Thank you so much. We'll go on to Ritik, who has been waiting for a while, and all these views, are great because everybody sees something different in all the mythology books, and while discussing these books together, we get to know a lot. So let's go to Ritik. Ritik, can you unmute yourself and tell us about your favorite books, etc.?
Just like I have told you that I have not read so much books because I have started reading the books from last 1 month only. I started. So I have just started reading the book name called Inside the Chanakya's Mind by Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai. This book I was reading. So this book talks basically about how a man should think, how he should control his thinking powers, how he should control that in the circumstances which he faces, how he should think, and all about that only.
Great. Thanks, Ritik. Thank you for that. Great recommendation. And if you can mention it in the chat also, so we'll know later which books we need to, pick up. So I'll be talking about this one. It's called Vanara. And as you see, the illustration is just amazing. It depicts the book also pretty well. And I don't know how many of you have read Anand Neelakantan before, but he has got a very unique way of, getting rid of all the, frills in mythology. Mythology has got so many conspiracy theories, like there are airplanes and all of that, and there's the fantasy aspect especially. So Anand Neelakantan gets rid of all of that, treats it in a very sort of a very human sort of rendition. Not that there is not that aspect, but it is yeah. So Bala says that epics minus the what did you say? Bala says that just give me a moment. Epics minus the aura. True. So he has got a great point there. So what I felt about the book was that I was immediately hooked, and it doesn't happen to me always with mythology books. I get bored because there are too many characters and they are usually very thick anyways. It had very short chapters. So say a chapter is about like 3 to 6 pages, anywhere between 3 to 6 pages. So it gives you speed to read, and that's what I love in books, especially in contemporary, literature, be it mythology or anyways. There was another book I read, Narsimha, I think so 6-7 months back, by Kevin Missel, and that was also great. Similar in structure. So structure is really important for me when I'm reading a book, and especially mythology, so that I'm not bored. Talking about, of course, Bali and Sugriv, everybody knows about them from the Ramayana, which is now airing. And I don't know how many of you are watching it, but it's a great nostalgic. Oh, Vidushi is watching it, she says. And you can raise your hand if you are watching it right now. Great. Yeah. So Arpit also says that he's watching it. So it's great that there are so many references in the Ramayana which we have watched and perhaps read some books. But this is like a complete origin story, and it rocks. Trust me, it seriously rocks because from the first chapter itself, they tell you how this, Bali and Sugriv, the entire story, built up. And of course, it's the first truly love triangle which occurred in history of our being, because it has got Tara, who has got the, who has got liking for both of them actually, from the get go. And so that ways it was pretty interesting, a more human side of these warriors. Some of the parts which I really loved, I would like to read a little bit from one part especially. This is uh, yeah. So Bali and Sugriva are in this ashram, and Priyakshi referred to this in the Ahalya story earlier. Are in this ashram, and they are kind of, it's a very racist society because they are these Vanaras, or they don't like it. It's like nigger in the Western society. If you call them Vanaras, they'll feel really bad. They like to be called as one nurse, which is like forest people. So it's like a slur, and they live in this ashram. So I would like to read from here a little bit, and then yeah. So what Bali is doing is he's trying to build some fire, and the thing about fire is that the sages say that it can only be built by incantations and magic. So that's what is associated with fire. But so what Bali is doing is that he's trying to. So yeah, the sage had lectured Bali that fire was sacred and it was not something Vanara boys should even think about, let alone learn how to make. Fire hid in the trees and in the sky, the sage had said, and it was the mantras that set the fire free. The world was made of five elements: fire, water, earth, air, and sky. And the fire was the most important among the five. Those who controlled fire controlled the world. That was what was believed. I mean, whoever had control over fire, they were in the ascendancy. The fire burst with a snap and licked the dry leaves. So Bali manages to, make fire. And it's like a eureka moment for him because all he was taught growing up was that they couldn't, uh, build up fire. The fire needed no magical chance to appear. It had come to him, a low caste forest dweller, just by rubbing a few twigs. So there is talk of caste, there is a lot of prejudice, like everyone talked about it. It was very kind of sad for me to see that that used to happen in those days. It needed only effort and perseverance that he had in plenty. Bali watched the flames consuming the leaves and pushed more of them into the fire. So this part really fascinated me because for the first time, it's like, we have always heard that in the stone ages, people used to build a fire. And this was just amazing for me, the way he did it. Another part was that I would like to read, but I would like to tell you when Bali and Sugriv are lost in the forest, and they are attacked by Jatayu and another sort of Garud. I mean Jatayu and I forget the name. Sambati. There are two huge birds, and there was a myth that they were related to Garuda. What happens is that Bali and they are both the birds attacked Bali and Sugriv, and they managed to somehow defeat them. Especially Bali, because Bali was the stronger of both. I mean, Sugriv has been projected in the book as someone who has got more emotions, get carried away easily, and is very gullible, to be honest. And Bali hates Sugriv for that, and he hates his guts that he is always manipulated by everybody. So yeah, that was one part, and that entire fight with Jatayu, and it's amazing, and it's great from a sort of scientific point of view also that such birds, were there. Perhaps they were mutations of some kinds, or they existed. I have no idea, but it's great to know. and then the entire love triangle, of course, with Tara, and Tara treats Bali initially. He gets injured in this fight with Jatayu, although he manages to what do you call almost kill Sambati, the other bird, big bird. So Tara treats Bali, and he gets well, and Sugriv is immediately smitten. He's like, one of the boys who gets smitten very easily, and there starts the romance, and it's an amazing book, to be honest, and I would encourage everybody to pick it up. So yeah, enough about Vanara, and let's unmute uh, all of us, and let's talk to each other for 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll close this session. We can unmute ourselves.
Brahma calls a meeting of like all the gods and Vishnu, and he says ki Vishnu has decided to reincarnate, to take like form as Ram to like kill Ravan. So you guys have to help him, right? We need a force of like supernatural allies who will help Ram. So your job, all the gods like Indra, Varun, Agni, is to mate with all the other races like Gandharvas, Yakshas, like even Nagas and all that, to create like a race of supernatural beings.
Yeah.
So, Hanuman is the son of Vayu, and Bali is the son of Indra, and like Sugriv is the son of Agni. I don't know, like so.
Yeah, that is true. There are like the first part of Mahabharata that deals with just the short stories and the backstories of leading up to the Gita and the battlefield. All of them they have so many children, and like children being born everywhere.
Yeah.
One of Rama's ancestors has like 60,000 children.
But actually, Varun is right, because even in Vanara, the origin of Bali story, it's like similar. It's so gross. I mean, it's gross the way he's born.
So that's how it happens. It's just biology.
Yeah. What about Arpit? Tell us about what's that comic book you have? You were talking about 21 days or 18 days. What's it called?
So I was reading this 18 days. I'm not happy with the story where it is going, frankly.
Okay.
Obviously, the writer went through a Western, this perspective or this Western lens of, there's a hero in the story, there's a villain in the story. Indian epics, the mythologies are not written that way. We have a different lens. We don't have a Pegambar approach. We have a Digambar approach.
Okay.
We have a concept of karma that is missing in the Greek or the Western mythologies. They are not there. The Greek has a very simple way of lens. Like there's a hero. He does certain amount of stuff. Means certain versions like Hercules. He has to do certain tasks. So he will become God. He'll take his place in the pantheon of gods. Okay. The judo. Then comes the Western. That is the Judo-Islamic and Judo-Islamic. Approach. That are the Abrahamic religion. They have this. Stories of there is this God. God has given selected one person. He has given a set of rules. And everybody who needs to find God needs to follow that person who has this rules, and due to that rules, we will find God.
Okay, let's do one thing. Let's do one thing, Arpit. Thank you for that. But I loved the first part which you in fact gave me. I loved that comic book. Anyways, let's do one thing. We'll go for recommendations across the board, and then we'll end the session. Let's go to Vidushi first. Vidushi, any recommendations other than which you have talked about? Jaya is there, yeah.
And any book of Devdutt Pattanaik. To be honest, I'm fascinated by all of them. They're all in my Kindle, ready to read.
Yeah, we'll go to Priyachi next.
Yeah, I really like these two by Amish, the Nagas and Meluha. Frankly, I didn't really like this much, the Oath of the Vayuputras. I gave it up midway, but these two fascinated me a lot. And Devdutt Pattanaik, of course, because he writes in very simple language so that everybody can understand. We don't have depth to maybe go into the real Gita and understand its meaning. So I think that makes it very simple for us.
Yeah. Let's go to Bala.
Yeah.
Any other recommendations from you?
Me? Yeah, I really like this only that this one, whatever that Dice of Doom, because I always felt that Shakuni is one of the central most characters of Mahabharata. It almost revolves around him. If suppose Krishna was not there on Pandava's side, I think Kauravas might have won it like that. He's such sort of a central character. So I always was looking for one such version, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And also, I like the Vanara very much last time.
Yeah. Did you read the Vanara?
Yeah, I read the Vanara and also put a blog on it.
Okay, share the blog later. Share the blog with us later. We'll love to read it.
Sure.
Let's go to Varun. Any other recommendations?
I would recommend the Rigved. It's like an abridged Rigved translation by Wendy Doniger, which is like there are 1,008 shlokas in Rigved, but she has condensed it to like the most important ones. That's good. I think it's important to read like the source material because Vedic religion is very different from Hinduism. I think like just the way it was practiced. And one other recommendation would be to read The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. It is not specifically about Hindu mythology, but it is like a comparative study of all different types of mythology, and there are a lot of references to Hinduism and Hindu myths and Buddha myths. And it's really great because it sort of unravels what makes a myth in the first place. So those are my recommendations.
Yeah. Okay, so I have this one. It's for children, but it's fascinating nonetheless. Young Pandavas. So it's for children as well as everybody else. So it's like I love the treatment, and it's a very thin book also. So you can get perspective about the Pandavas. Recommend this one, and of course I've got this version of Ramayana. So it has got illustrations also. Yeah, check it out. So yeah, it has got illustrations also, and it is very it is kind of it has got some great material. It's not in English, it's in Hindi, and it has got so it's in Hindi, but it's a great recommendation nonetheless. So I would love you to perhaps pick it up. So yeah, I think we have Arpit, any recommendations, and then we'll close the session.
Okay, so I will recommend you, the originals. As with Varun sir, I'll go with Varun sir. If you want to read about Vedic religion, go with Rigved. And if after Bhakti came into the play, if you want to read that, then you need to read Samved, Ajharved, and a combination of all the Veds. Okay. And if you want to go with Ramayana, the original, go with the Valmiki Ramayana. That is like but you have to put out the concept that Ram was God before reading it.
Okay.
You need to take out the concept from your head. And for the second one, if you want to read, mythological, great this Ram, great that. So read then, Tulsidas, Ramcharitamanas. That is the best option.
Okay, great. Thank you all for, sparing time. I'm almost 1.5 hours. It went more than 1 hour, which I didn't expect. But thank you so much. It was lovely doing this. And this is the first online book club meetup, but we would love to do this again soon. Thanks, Ritik. We were just leaving. Thank you for joining us. And you can unmute yourself, of course. So, okay, guys.
Thank you.
Guys, do, send other recommendations, WhatsApp us, or on the Facebook page at the Booknerds, and even on Instagram. And let's stay connected, and let's look forward to next week, perhaps. So yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps another theme, another online book club meetup. So thank you so much for attending the Booknerds Hangout. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.